Hello, guys. Welcome back. Episode 15 of the Modern Market Podcast. So, hope you guys like the new name. I figured make it easier for you all to find us and follow us and hit that subscribe button. So, also, if you notice, Chris is not here with me. He's got at least for the time being, he's got a new venture he's working on. So, it actually coincides with the timing of this. So it's just going to be me for the time being, but hopefully he comes back in the near future. But anyways, I gotta have the show continue to go on. So let's start with the real estate stats. So I actually got all 13 counties of California, which I wanted to kind of expand our range. I also have Placer, Sacramento, El Dorado County as well, but it's good to be able to kind of showcase what we've said before, how similar it is, and you'll be able to see how similar it really, really is compared to Placer and Sac and El Dorado County. So for all 13 counties. So if you remember back on the most recent podcast, episode 14, we had some data and we saw some supply jumps from May to June, and it's continuing down that trend. So for all 13 counties in California, we got for June, we had 4,266 for sale, so on market. And also in July, we got 4,458. So that is a 4.5% increase in our inventory. So that's going to be all 13 counties. Sold is down 11.1%. Pended is up 1.7%. So there is some interesting bit of information. I think a lot of the demand is being driven between that $400,000 and $600,000 price point. That's what I'm seeing buyers still come in at because it's usually dual income type borrowers. So moving on to Placer County, Sacramento County, and El Dorado County, you'll see very similarities. So for sale on the market from June to July, we saw a 5.3% increase in for sale. So we went from 2,158 in June to 2,272 in July. So we're seeing an increase in supply. As you can see, it's very, very similar to all 13 counties. You're at 4.5% increase for all state of California, and then we have 5.3% for Placer, Sac, and El Dorado County. So you can see very, very similar. Sold, we're down 11.2%, and we are at negative 2.1%. We're down 2.1% on the pended, so 1602 to 1569. We're seeing a little increase in supply, and we're really, I think the majority of that demand, like I was saying, is between that 400,000 and really 575,000, because those are the people that roughly you're going to be in the position to where you're going to be around $8,000 to $12,000 in monthly gross income. So usually that's going to be two incomes combined together in order to buy and afford that payment. So keep that in mind. As we continue to go, if supply continues to go up and demand cannot support that, then we might be able to see a little bit of a price adjustment. The toughest part is I think there's going to be price adjustments for the higher end first, because the barrier to entry is so much higher versus the 400 to 600, where it's usually the first time home buyers, the husband and wife, or the two fiancés, or the, who knows, it could be also just what I've been seeing is relationships buying homes together. So keep your eye open for that, and hopefully we can see some sort of small price adjustment. I don't see it really in the 400 to 600 range, but in the high end department, I think there will be. Supply and demand, right? Demand, supply meeting up. That's going to be our equilibrium. But if our demand is lower than our supply, it can't absorb it. So that means that the supply that's not being absorbed has to be adjusted. So we'll see how that plays out. Also, see how it plays out with the interest rates, because they're not moving a whole lot. I would say in terms of month over month, they've gone up a little bit. It's annoying with the conventional rates for a prime borrower. You're looking in the low 7 to mid 7s, and then VA low 7s, and then FHA are like high 6s, low 7s. Going back to 2 weeks ago, actually, the Fed actually increased their federal funds rate from 5.25 to 5.5. So that means it's a 0.25% or 25 basis points increase. So typically, you're going to see interest rates rise a little bit, small little increments leading up to the Fed meetings, because right now, as everything stands, Mr. Jerome Powell has not said that he's going to be stopping these rate hikes. For the time being, we have to assume that those rate hikes are going to continue to go. So actually the rates improved after the previous rate hike, because a lot of lenders, they have to make sure that they're hedging their bets in the right ways and making sure that they're making enough money so they can be able to sell it. That's a whole nother conversation. However, they need to be able to bake it in. So they don't want to be, you don't want to be seeing a 0.25% and 1 day difference. They're trying to ease it up, anticipating that they're going to be higher anyways. And a lot of the time they actually go down. So right now, for most loans, we're in the 7s. So that is the reality of the situation. I actually am doing FHA in the mid 6s. So a lot of the time, FHA is making a lot more sense for payments. If you're working with a loan officer, tell them to do, he or she, do a conventional and an FHA comparable and see. Because sometimes, I mean, this for this particular woman, it actually saved her about $200 a month going FHA. So keep that in mind, because you can always refinance down the road. I'm not going to give you a time frame for when that is going to be the case. However, when you're putting a minimum down, or say 3.5%, 3%, or 5%, you're going to most likely refinance in the next 3 to 7 years and get yourself into a conventional loan anyways. So keep that in mind. I wanted to talk about one topic, and because I just recently experienced it. A situation that I had recently was there was a credit union involved. Yeah. And I compete all the time as a broker. We're always competing for rates. It's like you're competing for every single loan right now. It's pretty tough, especially on the mental. Loyalty's tough to find, and when you find it, you love them to death. But I had a situation to where I structured a loan in a certain way, FHA actually, and he was putting a large down payment down, and he was wondering why he couldn't do conventional. And I said, well, here's the thing. With conventional, there's what's called a debt to income ratio. And with conventional loans, there is a lower debt to income ratio percentage, which is 45%. It would be total debts plus your mortgage payment divided by your total gross monthly income cannot exceed 45% on most conventional loans. There's some first-time homebuyer products you can go up to 50%, but even then, he's still not qualifying at the purchase price in the home he was trying to get. So with FHA, you can actually go up to 55%, and it was actually yielding him a way better interest rate. Like I'm talking like a 1.5% difference, because he had a lower credit score. So I explained it to him. He wasn't particularly happy, but he was okay with the payment, but he heard all the myths like FHA bad, which is not the case. So he went to a credit union, and they said that they could do it a conventional loan at a ridiculous interest rate. And I was just looking at my rate sheets. I can compete with anybody. And it really came down to knowing for a 100% fact that it was complete and utter BS. And guess what? They ended up submitting an offer as a conventional loan predicated on that credit union doing their due diligence. And then he gets the call 2 days later. They didn't even run his credit, no documentation, no nothing. It makes the agent look bad, but it's a first-time home buyer, so he doesn't know what he's really doing for the first time. I don't really know what ended up happening, because I think he still ended up working with a credit union doing the same loan that I did for him, but it's okay. But it ended up being a situation where couldn't do the conventional loan. The rate was completely bait and switch. And then he, when they actually got all of his income documentation, they set him up with a very, like almost the exact same FHA loan type that I set him up with. But then there started being points involved, and I just don't even know if this deal came together. But the moral of the story is be aware what people will tell you over the phone right now, because right now, it is slower for everyone in the real estate industry. It is slower. Keep that in mind when it comes to working with a mortgage professional. It's not so much apparent on the real estate side. It's all about trust. But when it comes to mortgage and your financing, there is just a lot of screwy stuff going on. So my suggestion is going to be, for one, if you're a real estate agent, always make sure to ask the tough questions. I know it may seem like it's an intrusive questions, but ask the questions. The questions to ask are going to be, all right, have they run credit? Have you received all their income documentation? Have you gotten a written verification of employment showing exactly how much income their HR department is saying they pay him? Because that is guaranteed pay. And then an underwriter will be able to use that, not even have to worry about it. So those are the tough questions. And if they've done that and they can send you a loan estimate, then awesome. But if they can't do that, you need to be starting to ask the questions again and again and again and see why they can't. And at the end of the day, that will answer a lot of the questions that you were trying to figure out. The answer that you found out was they didn't do their due diligence, and now you kind of put yourself and your buyer in a tough situation. If you're a borrower, I like to suggest to lean on your real estate agent for a lot of the referrals. The reason why is because a lot of the time they work with the lender that they are trying to refer over to you, And that means they've closed with them. So they know how they communicate. They know that they fund. They know that they can hit the timelines. And they know they're going to be honest. Don't take them at their word for it. You need to be able to feel absolute trust with this person. Being upfront. The one thing I always like to do, and I'm just different, I always like to overestimate the monthly payments and the cost just a little bit. I'd rather let numbers go down rather than go up. $1 down is a lot better than $1 up. It's just the reality. So that's the way I like to work. And you should be having a loan officer that works very similarly, because if you're being quoted these ridiculous rates, it's setting expectations that are not even realistic, then you're doing yourself a disservice and your agent, because your offer doesn't mean a whole lot. So the bait and switch is very, very apparent. Work with people that are trustworthy. Here are my 3 things. 1, trust. You can tell. You can tell if this person is trustworthy and they are knowledgeable. Ask them anything. They should be able to answer it. And if they're going to be trustworthy, they will tell you. If they do not know it, they're going to chat with their broker or their branch manager, whoever, to get the answer to you ASAP. And here's the 3rd one, accessibility. I cannot stand when I hear agents or borrowers work with loan officers that work 9 to 5 and do not answer their phone after 5 o'clock or on the weekends. That is ridiculous. You need to be working with someone that works on your schedule. I do not want you to call me or text me. Maybe if you have a break and you want to reach out to me during your work hours, great. But I do not want you to feel like you have to reach out to me and take your precious work time and hours to reach out to me and get me documentation. We can chat at 6, 6:30, 7 o'clock. It's not a big deal, especially on the weekends. That's when real estate happens. So if you have a loan officer that is not going to be sending you pre-approval letters over the weekends, failure. Use someone else. So those are my 3 big things. And be aware of points. Sometimes, like for instance, this particular situation, there's only so high you can go on interest rate. When you have such a low credit score, you sometimes have to pay for a little bit of the rate, mainly because the rate sheet doesn't go high enough to cover the cost. So keep that in mind if you have a lower credit score. So again, I'm going to go back and just say the people that should be evaluating to see if they can buy a home is, for one, 2 years of full-time employment. That's the first one. Second, you have either $7,200 to $10,000 a month in income, and $10,000 might be able to have a little bit of debt. $7,280 or like $7,500, you need some seriously low debt, hardly no debt. So keep that in mind. Also, you need to have, I would say when it comes to FHA, you'll need at least 20 grand. That's good. The more the merrier, but here's going to be your minimums. 3.5% down for FHA, and then you have 3% down for conventional if you were a first-time home buyer. And then closing costs are going to be between 2 and 5% of the sales price. And what's cool as a buyer, you do not have to pay for any of the real estate commission. That's the one misconception as well. I was talking with a new buyer, and they wouldn't know. It's their first time, and they thought that, so I heard it's like a 2.5%, so I'm going to have to pay that out of pocket. I'm like, nope. Like, oh, really? Yeah, it comes out of the seller's pocket. So when you're selling a home, let's just say the home I'm in, they sell for $500,000. And my producer, Rob, is my agent. And he gets a 2.5% fee in order to sell me this home. So the listing agent has their 2.5%. My buyer's agent has 2.5%. 5% comes out of the seller's equity when they sell, and then dispersed to each of the brokerages. So it doesn't come out of your pocket. So the only thing you have to worry about is loan costs, and when it comes down to it, your down payment and escrow costs as well. So those are the people to keep in mind if you were trying to look at buying a home. It's a good time if it's financially feasible for you. Do not make yourself house poor, because that's not why we buy real estate. We buy real estate to enhance our life, not to bring it down. So I think that's about it, but I just want to leave you with this, especially when rates do go down the road. Bait and switch is going to be everywhere. Listen to the people that matter to you the most. If you have parents that have worked with a loan officer before, they might be a good resource. An agent might be a good resource. Or if you know of a buddy, don't just use him because he's your buddy. Use him because you know he's going to do the job right. and he can be competitive with rates. That helps too. And usually brokers are going to be in that position to be able to do that. Direct lenders have started to be able to broker out, sometimes be able to compete a little bit more. So all in all, it's all about trust. If you don't feel that trust from the start, do not use them, because if they're going to do it once, they'll probably do it again. Hope you guys enjoyed this podcast, episode 15. See you guys in the next one.